Ethereum appears to be recovering from a recent dump, but we're not out of the woods yet. Make sure you stick around for the end of this video to find out exactly my price prediction for Ethereum, as well as all the latest Ethereum news and technical analysis. Guys, hello and welcome to the House of Crypto. I make videos about Ethereum as well as Cardano and other cryptocurrencies, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on the way in to be kept up to date with all of the latest Ethereum news. So jumping into the first piece of news here on ZY Crypto, Biden's tax plan could be bullish for Ethereum but bearish for Bitcoin. So Joe Biden has recently announced that he has a plan in place to tax high income households, which is going to have a big effect on Bitcoin in terms of a negative effect, but also could be quite bullish for Ethereum. The reception of the new development for Bitcoin community is not encouraging, as the months ahead might be plagued with some bearish storm, which I think we might be seeing at the start of at the moment. It is expected that the implementation of the proposal will cause sellers in the market to pay more than they are already paying to carry out Bitcoin transactions. As such, deposits might go into DeFi protocols. So this is obviously bullish for Ethereum holders, but perhaps not so great for Bitcoiners, because it means that people will have to deposit into DeFi protocols and borrow cash for their expenses. Okay, so many people who are heavily invested in crypto probably taking loans potentially against their crypto, and this will obviously play out in terms of usage of DeFi and ultimately on the Ethereum network. So we can expect potentially that Ethereum may benefit as Bitcoin falls, as well as other altcoins in the space. Now obviously you've seen a bit of a dip in the Ethereum price after reaching all-time highs around $2,650, but actually it's looking quite positive in terms of this data here, where it says the total number of deposits in ETH's deposit contract have crossed the $9 billion mark. The social sentiment is bullish in the case of Ethereum, and in the long term awaiting the EIP 1559 upgrade plan for 14th of July. As you know, back a month ago, many people were sort of saying that Ethereum wasn't going to go anywhere until we had this kind of news of the EIP 1559 update, which is obviously not due for another few months. However, this is actually looking very positive. Multi-chain DeFi insurance aggregators on the ETH network and several DeFi products rely on ETH's network growth. What's the key to the network is the hodlers who have held ETH for over a year. At press time, there were 57% of these hodlers, and after booking double-digit returns on ETH hodlers are waiting for a comeback to the $2,600 level to sell further. Okay, so what we can probably expect to see now is further accumulation from institutional investors as well as other whales, etc. The number of whale wallets is still sort of remaining around the same, which means that the recent dip hasn't actually been from a whale sell-off, so actually that adds stability. So the dip was probably come, as when the price goes up, we tend to have a lot of kind of new people in the market who may not have such an experience of cryptocurrency and the big moves, and may have been shaken out by this recent dip. But we'll go over to the charts in a moment and see where we're going to go from here. Also comes down to here saying there's a rising demand across exchanges for Ethereum. Okay, so this is actually quite a positive thing. It may have hurt recently when there was a big drop, especially if you bought in around all-time highs, but this is particularly positive news, especially when we take it into consideration along with the recent news on taxes from Joe Biden. Jumping across to the Ethereum chart, we looked at this the other day and we saw that we were creating a sort of a channel down, lower channel here, putting in higher highs. And literally a few hours ago, we came down and we tested this area here for a moment around the $2,160 level. And as you can see, that was bought up really quickly. There was a big moment of sell-off here from the all-time high spike, which was probably to be expected because it did come up very quickly in a quite short space of time. And as you can see, that again sat nicely within our channel, and we continue to build this bullish symmetrical triangle pattern. Now, as you know, triangles can break to both sides, but as you can see, where potentially we were waiting for a break to happen here, it never came. So as it stands, it's actually looking quite strong, and there's clearly some good buying pressure here. If we look in the past, this was a good line of resistance and eventually got flipped into support and came back. Although we did break back down through, we were then pushed quite quickly back, and every time we've dropped back down, we've had big pushes back to the upside, and literally in the middle of a push as I talk right now. Now, what would we be expecting to happen is that we would need to sort of see this kind of push back towards the upside before we can confirm that we're going to break to all-time highs again. Now, as mentioned previously, we would like to see a break before perhaps a retest at this high level and then move back to the upside. Now, in terms of how we find targets for this, we would take from the high of the pattern here down to the low and then move it to a potential point of breakout. Now, it could be here, it could be down here, and until it kind of gets there, we can't know exactly where it's going to break out, and that will ultimately affect the target price that we will likely see. Now, as you can see, that target price would take us up to this level, which is just shy, in fact, pretty much on the money, $3,000. Now, there's no time telling exactly when we're likely to see breakouts and how long they'll take to get there. But as we've seen patterns in the past, once they fulfill the criteria and they do break out, then in time they will eventually come to these levels up here. So, it wouldn't surprise me if we were to break out, we would probably see some resistance potentially around this level here, which was the previous all-time high around the $2,528 level. And also, again, a resistance level around probably 2,600. As we know, as we've been moving up through this pattern, we've been hitting resistance levels around the sort of $100 marks each time, because obviously people have in mind particular selling points that they want to offload. But this is a really positive thing that we've seen here, and there's clearly good buyer volume until we see potentially it move back down. If it is to move back down, and it then would see maybe a breakout to the downside like this. However, it's looking very positive that at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now we've seen it get rejected from this lower band and push up. Now, if we jump across to the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin, as you can see, is continuing to kind of fall down. So as in the past, we've had Ethereum sort of holding the coattails of Bitcoin. And actually, it sort of has been decoupled in a way, and it's definitely performing much more strongly against Bitcoin. So as we can see right now, Bitcoin's down around 1.3%, whereas Ethereum is up 2.4%. This is very positive as an Ethereum holder, because in terms of what we can see here, Bitcoin has sort of also been in somewhat of a triangle pattern, ascending triangle pattern, but actually has broken to the downside. Now, there wasn't particularly big selling volume, which actually could mean that this is just a fake out. We could see potential move to the upside, but if you're a Bitcoin holder, I would obviously air the caution that something is clearly happening here, and it's not looking particularly strong right now, in my opinion. Now, jumping across to the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, we can see something quite interesting. We've had numerous ascending triangle patterns breaking to the upside, and what we can see right now is again another kind of pattern developing here. Now, obviously, this is not quite the same triangle, and this is what is a descending triangle, and typically this is quite a bearish pattern. As you can see, you get lower highs, and typically this means that the sellers are coming in at certain levels, but we've had a bit of a rejection here, and we've created this perfect engulfing candle here, which is a very big green candle against this small candle here, where there wasn't a significant amount of movement. As you can see, the volume starting to come in here. Now, what we might see is this get sort of rejected and perhaps come back down to retest before moving to the upside. Now, this red line at the top, we'll just zoom out a bit further so we can see exactly what we're looking at. So jumping out onto the weekly, as we talked about the other day, we were going to push all the way up to the top of this band, and we would likely get rejected. And as you see from this big wick here, this is on the weekly chart, so over a couple of days we've had a bit of a drop as Bitcoin has kind of pulled its way back towards Ethereum. So we're sat at the moment pretty much around these high levels, and it's clearly struggling to break through. But given the news, given the way that Ethereum is acting and the way that the investors are acting with Ethereum, this is actually looking still quite positive, in my opinion. Now, to break out of the top of a channel like this is actually a very difficult thing. These tend to be kind of bearish patterns because they obviously are ascending, and to break out you kind of almost need to go parabolic because the general trend of the line is heading in an upwards direction. So we might be testing this sort of level here and move along up, and potentially take a dip against it depending on the behavior of Bitcoin. But ultimately, looking back at Ethereum chart on the weekly, we can still see that we're well inside of our pattern, and we're still moving up nicely. There's a huge volume coming in here of buying pressure, which is great to see. But I would draw your attention to this RSI, which is showing that we are slightly overbought. And as we know in the past, when we've been overbought, it can create a bit more of a volatile market, as many people are buying in or betting on it going long. And when everyone believes it's going to go long, that's never really a very good thing, and it's not necessarily particularly safe, because if people, if something causes a bit of a drop, a bit of news or whatever, then that tends to liquidate many accounts as it falls, and this ultimately causes a much bigger crash than would be initially expected. However, on the sort of shorter time frames in the next sort of days, it's looking very positive, and I'm, in my opinion, if it is to break out of the top of this triangle, we could potentially be seeing $3,000 in the next week or 2 weeks. Go away and do your own research. Never invest more money than you can afford to lose. There's loads and loads of information available online, so make sure you're kind of like looking around to get the best idea of what's happening for you, and always mitigating your risk. Try not to FOMO in, when the prices are sort of spiking and you're jumping in to trades. Be careful of what you're doing. Obviously, this is a great way to lose money if you get it wrong, and you never want to be left holding the bag. Guys, if you enjoyed today's content, then please smash that like button. It really helps me to get this content to more people. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't already subscribed, then please consider hitting that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of the latest happening in Ethereum as well as other cryptocurrencies. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow with another video. Thank you. Bye-bye.